Texas!
He's a 10.
I choose this family.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 86 of 91 LoneStar RoundUp. I'm one of your hosts, Katie, and with me are my lovely co-hosts, Grace.
Hi, everyone.
And EJ.
Hey.
So today we will be talking about season 4, episode 5 of LoneStar titled Human Resources. This was an interesting episode, I guess.
Yeah, interesting is a good word for it.
Yeah, so let's just talk about it, I guess. That's the only way to get through it.
It had many different parts to it.
It did. Yeah, that's for sure. So the creepy first scene that kind of led into the, cult storyline, as I like to call it. This scene was it gave me the creeps every time I watched it. But like the second time, I'm like, okay, it's so damn creepy. But like basically, so we have like this creepy ass music, and then we have all these mannequin heads, which creep me out in general. Like literally, when I was younger and I saw mannequin heads, I was like, oh my god, no. Creepy. Then like it's just outside of like a school bus, like an old school bus or whatever, and then like you see this guy walk up the bus, and then he's like blowing it up, and like he's obviously like I guess practicing for whatever is to come or whatever he's planning. And like, okay, we all know this is O'Brien's like nephew. I don't think it's that hard to figure out. And like there have been pictures posted for like promoting this episode where I was like, okay, that's definitely him. And so he's blowing up this bus with the mannequins, and then there's this guy that's just like hiking because it looks like, I don't know, in the woods, a trail or something. And this guy's just like there, and he's just like, an innocent bystander, and he's like asking him if he's okay, and he's like, oh, what are you doing here? Like, what the heck is going on? And then the dude says like, oh, I really wish you didn't see that, and he proceeds to shoot him. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that was not pretty.
That kind of reminded me of like during the snowstorm when that crooked sheriff like shot that I literally got a flashback the second time I watched this of that. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is how we're really starting.
The moment someone else shows up to that kind of thing, you're like, oh yeah, they're dead.
Oh yeah. No questions asked on that one.
Yeah. And
no, he's out in the middle of nowhere, so he ain't exactly being discovered anytime soon.
Right. I know. And I'm like, what the hell? And like, so it's like, okay, so like, do we have another serial killer? Like literally one to the
I mean, we still,
I mean, more than that. He's way more than that.
Well, he's got plenty of multifaceted. But it's serial killer, I feel like, is a little bit more of a profile. Like it's a certain type, it's a certain method, that kind of thing. It's a killer, probably a multi-time killer. I feel like serial killer makes it sound a little bit more focused on the killing when we know he's moving towards something else.
Yeah, this definitely seems like it's a targeted, like he's practicing for a specific target.
I know, and like I don't know what it is. Like, I kind of have a feeling, but I'm also like, is that really it? Or is it more like rooted than it actually is and stuff? But then we get Owen attempting to sell his bike, and I'm just like, Owen, know your audience, because this dude was not your audience.
I know, right?
Like this dude is like I guess a podiatrist or something. He definitely does like he's not like the daredevil type. You can tell by the way he's talking, the way the way he looks, not the type. And what really scared him off was when Mateo said like, oh, they're donor cycles, and the guy's like, what?
Yeah.
And
I'm like, how have you not heard that term? Like,
I know,
like, I hear it all the time. Like, I've known that.
I feel like
I hear it all the time.
It's just a known thing. Like, you don't have to like see that on a daily, or not a daily, but like on a frequent basis to know that. But yeah, the dude basically runs out there. He couldn't run faster. And Owen's like, really, Mateo? And like he tells him to keep his mouth shut to the next person.
God.
And like he's not
Yeah.
wrong. Like
No,
Mateo's
he's
not
not.
wrong.
No.
He's
And
right.
I mean, my mom has told me how many different stories about,
Mhm.
different motorcycle calls that they went out on. And you hear from ask any first responder,
Right.
and they'll be able to tell you. You know about a motorcycle, you know it's a risk. The two go hand in hand.
Right.
I don't know what the guy was expecting.
Yeah.
I
If
think-
nothing else, it's simply that you have nothing around you to protect you from someone being an idiot.
right, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, and Owen like wants to sell his bike, and it's like he's like, oh, I'm ready to move on, and I'm ready to, go on to the next challenge. And they're all like, you've had the bike for 3 weeks.
I really wanted TK to say something like, yeah, my dad changes his hobbies quite frequently or something like that.
I know, because it's for sure true. And then this lady walks in, and Owen, she's like complimenting the bike and stuff, and Owen just like thinks she's here to buy it, but really
Right.
she's from HR, and she has talked about the recent complaint, and I'm like, oh, here we go.
Right.
Like, and this is like one of the things where I'm like, that's kind of old, like at the recent complaint, but
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's just I think it just pisses me off just
Mhm.
how they went about it, and like the whole scenario for stupid.
Yep, it is. But then we get Grace getting a call from this kid, Linus, who's
Oh
like
my
the new
God, he's so cute.
frequent flyer
Yeah.
and stuff. And he's like basically like it sounds like he's stuck. And so Grace thinks he's actually like stuck, but he's like,
Right.
no, I'm stuck on my math homework. I have to get it done, or wherever he's working on is multiplying his sevens. And so Grace helps him with this, with like the happy birthday song to do it. And like it reminds me of this like viral call that went viral like years and years ago of this little girl calling, like I think it was like one of the PDs in whatever area she was calling from, asking for help.
Cute.
Like
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff. And stuff. And like this was definitely like, I don't know, I liked this because like I had read that there was going to be like a frequent flyer call, and this has definitely happened on like a couple other shows I watch. So I was like interested how this was gonna go, but it was interesting. This part was so cute and stuff. But then we get the interviewing with the HR lady in the 126, and this gave me total like OG vibes, because I don't know, like it just reminds me of all the times that something like this has happened in 911, except for just it's a little different, but like it gave me the same vibe. But like, okay, so like they're bringing up like just different things in the past, and I'm like, okay, why are we bringing up Pierce after like I'm sorry, why does that guy?
To be fair, it was the firefighters bringing up him.
Yeah,
The lady was
I
just
know.
rolling with it.
I know. I feel like that's like it was them bringing. Yeah, it was them
Yeah.
bringing him up. But I'm like, even so, like in general, just why are we bringing him up?
Well, I think it really bothered me because I would imagine, because thankfully I've never had to deal with HR in that regard, but they had no idea what they were being like questioned on.
Right.
And I'm like, ridiculous.
Well,
like
to be fair, they thought it was Owen.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, everyone on the team thought it was Owen.
I thought it was Owen, yeah.
But obviously she went in there knowing like
Yeah.
she was kind of not
Right.
after, but like sort of after, like who was in trouble. That's the thing that like about HR is like they already know like who they're after or who they want, like and stuff, and it's just like I hate these songs.
Right.
And then like so yeah, obviously they're bringing up like the old calls. And like, I don't know, some of them I was like, oh yeah, I forgot the details about that, but
Like the guy from the fast food call.
okay, I kind of forgot about that, and I was like, wait, I thought like in my brain, it had been a season, so I was like, wait, I kind of forgot what happened with that. Like I kind of forgot that like I
he
knew
murdered someone.
I didn't forget he murdered someone, but I also thought he shot himself after it. Like I guess like I forgot details. So I was very confused. I was like, wait, isn't he dead? And I was like,
I did forget he was called. I forgot the specific name he was called. I forgot he was called Lardass. which I just mostly remembered him being stuck in the drive-through window too.
Oh yeah, that's all I remember too, because I tried to forget like all the little details of that because that was just disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that the guy who played the son sadly passed. That's about
Yes,
all
I do
I
remember that.
That was really
Yeah.
sad.
That was really sad, yeah. But that's about all I remember from that call. So I didn't actually mind they brought up Pierce. I don't know how HR investigations work. So I don't know if like she was just scouting out the general dynamic of the file, seeing if there was a larger problem or what. I didn't mind they brought up Pierce or the fast food or any of that, simply because for me, like Pierce would be the kind of person to try and file like a freaking HR complaint about something.
Oh.
However, he would probably do it a
Yeah.
lot sooner.
Right.
Yeah.
So
When he was brought up, I was like, man, he would really fit in where at like the Paragon paramedics. That was my
Right.
thought. But yeah, so like they're bringing up all these, things or whatever, but then it leads up to the current thing, which I'm like,
Mhm.
when I had seen like one of the previews of like this, I'm like, why is this coming back up? So like the
Mhm.
lady from the second episode of this season, there was
the
like
first
trapped.
episode. It was the
Oh, with
premiere.
no, it was
The
the second
trailer.
episode.
it was premiere episode
Mhm.
before everything started, I'm pretty
The
sure.
trailer. Was it?
No, it was the second episode. Because
Second
remember the
episode.
first episode was the frogs and the storm. Like this had nothing to do with the
Oh
storm.
yeah, you're right. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, I was like, guys, it's the second episode. But yeah, so it was in the second episode with like, obviously like her home was being stolen from her by her,
Yeah.
soon to be ex, and that call like and stuff, and like I don't know, like the lady was supposedly made uncomfortable because Marjan called her crazy.
That was
and-
fucking ridiculous. I would have
and
been like, I can call you more than that.
I know. that
I'm like,
was-
oh, I can whip out a whole list of things to call you. Crazy would be first on the list, but
Mhm.
getting steadily worse.
Yeah.
In Marjan's defense, she was being I get she might have been like, well, no, she was being crazy because it's like who in their right mind stays in a house that's a mobile home that's being literally hijacked and is going to be driven
Right.
under an overpass where it knows it can't fit, and basically you could have probably died if you were in there. So yeah, that was a little bit crazy.
It was
And, like,
crazy.
And then the HR lady's like, well, that saying crazy is like a slur. And I'm like, okay, I understand. Like, I understand, like, yes, using certain words are like, you shouldn't use them, but I'm also like, I understand the point, but I'm also like, come on now. Like, she was being crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the thing. It's little less that it's a slur and more that it's defamation. Did she post it on any sort of thing? No, it does not fit any textbook defamation thing. However, it still is a statement you cannot call someone without proof. This being said, I call plenty of people crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like, do I do it?
But
Do I do it to their face? No. Like, should she have
Right.
done it to
there are some people I
her
want to do it to
face?
the
No.
face, but no.
I know. There's a lot of people, and like, there's a lot of people I want to be like, but like, yeah, it was definitely
Mhm.
wrong. Like, I'm not gonna say it wasn't wrong, but it was also like, and I know this lady is stretching, which is why like we're not reacting, or at least I'm not reacting in any other way, because she is stretching so far with this story that she was offended and made it comfortable.
Oh yeah, and
We know that's not the truth.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which yeah, we'll talk
We'll
about
get to.
that so much later, because so much more comes up with that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
was so mad.
I know. I remember sending it to you guys and be like, "You have to be freaking kidding me! Like, are
Yeah.
you kidding me? Why are they back? Why is this coming up?"
It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
Uh,
that was just not. Then we get more of like Grace and Linus. So he calls back because he apparently was trying to make mac and cheese. He burnt some dish that was like his grandmother's or something. And Grace is just like, like you shouldn't be cooking like alone, and like it's like during like school hours. So she's like, oh, like why aren't you in school? And he mentions how like his mom gets headaches, so he, she lets him stay home or whatever. And so like this is like when she's starting to put together the pieces or the potential pieces of what she thinks is happening. Like,
Right.
oh, like this doesn't look good. And then like the mom does get on the phone because she realizes that he's like on the phone, and it's like, who are you talking to? It's like, oh, 911. And she's like, you're not supposed to call 911. And so then the mom gets on the phone and she is swearing. And I was just like, okay, I didn't really piece together what was happening until a little bit later.
Yeah.
But like I was just like, okay, so like is she drunk, or I don't know what's going on.
Right.
And like, yeah, this definitely like leads Grace to have like concerns, obviously, so as you should.
Well, yeah, and anyone that's in like some sort of first responder mode, even the dispatchers are, trained to pick up on subtle things, and this was definitely a subtle something was going on. I noticed the slurring in the first scene with the mother, but I just didn't piece together what was going on until later.
I definitely noticed the slurring earlier, and I was like, okay, that's weird, but it was definitely nothing where I was like, I don't know, because we didn't get enough of it to like really make anything of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then like we're at the 126 and they're all talking, and like everyone thinks Owen's in trouble, and it's like, oh, not again. But then like Marjan walks in and she's like, it's like Cap's not in trouble, and they're all like, he's not, but who is? And Marjan says how she is, and then they're all like, what? And she's just like, oh, well, remember the mobile house call? And they're like, yeah. And Marjan's like, she starts like venting basically about it and how the lady complained and said all these things. And then Owen's just like, okay, enough of that. Like, and then so they go and talk. And like he's like, you better be careful because you want to assume that there's ears everywhere.
Right.
And stuff. And yeah, Owen's just like, well, the good thing is we can get in today at headquarters. And it's like, oh, great. And I just love that Billy was brought up with like, well, you can clock the deputy, whatever, and like not really get in trouble, but like, I do this one thing and like here we are. And it's like yeah.
She had a good point with that, though. I mean, like, Owen really did a lot. And it could have been a lot worse for Owen. So, yeah.
I know. And so then they, like, get a call or whatever. But, like, Owen's, like, to Marjan, like, I think you should stay behind because of, like, all this drama and stuff. Like, he doesn't want, like, it, like, her to be, like, not focused. And, like, just in general, it doesn't look good if she were to go out there. So she stays behind. And this is when... And you can see him on the sides of the building, and stuff if you really zone in. But O'Brien's nephew, and yeah, so this scene just gave me so much creeps from it because he comes in and he's asking for like Owen, asking like where he is, as if he hadn't scoped things out, because we know he had pictures of the 126, he had pictures of Owen, so like I'm like, I know, like, he was just hanging out on the side of the building waiting for them to go out.
Yeah.
For either, like, well, there's always somebody there, but for, like, basically no one to be there so he can poke around, or so he can just make sure Owen's not there when he goes in, because Owen would recognize him.
Right.
He doesn't know that, but, like, just in general. And so, like, so he starts talking about to Marjan, and of course he claims, oh, I'm like, oh, you're Firefox, like, I'm a fan, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, of course, this is where we're going. And so he starts asking her questions and asking her about the job. And he claims he was in the army, which that really just doesn't sit right. I mean, because I can't stand when, like, people claim, like, that happens so often when people claim they were. It's so sickening because people claim and then they're not. And I'm like, what the hell? And then he's like asking about a job application. Marjan's like, we don't really have those, but I can give you like these, information about it, has everything on it. So then she walks away to get it, and he steals one of the radios, and then he leaves. And I'm just like, Marjan, can you zone in a little bit?
I know.
Marjan clearly was off put by him,
right?
But you also know that, like, you also know that she's had to deal with a lot of different people on the job before, so she was probably like, great, another person that wants to get in.
Yeah.
Whatever, he's a little odd.
Mm-hmm.
But also how do I word this right? When people attribute one really positive aspect to somebody, like being a veteran, that's something many people look favorably upon. They tend to use that to dismiss any oddities in behavior.
Oh yeah,
Right.
for sure.
So I feel like she also could have been using that for this, even just subconsciously.
Yeah.
I know that I would have been a little concerned if I was like the only person in the firehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And a strange man came up to me. I was acting a little bit odd, but
right.
You can't do anything about it really, because he wasn't wrong being there.
Right.
No, it was just the fact that like a radio was missing, and I was like, "Come on, Marjan, look," and be like, "Where did that go? Wasn't that here a second ago?"
Right. Yeah. That's what I was concerned about. I'm like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, why are you here? Like, what are you coming in for? Like, are you scoping out the place? Are you trying to steal something? And then obviously he stole the radio, so then that's
Yeah,
why
I
he's
think
there.
it was a little bit of both and stuff, but yeah. So then Grace brings up her concerns with her boss, and like so she shows her the 911 call and stuff that Grace had took, and obviously you can hear her slurring her words, and like Grace brings up like, oh, she got a DWI like 6 years ago, and she thinks that like maybe like we should get like an officer to do welfare check. But like Grace's boss is just like, well, like like you're usually right about these things, but if you do that and like something, like if something's wrong, then like you've done the right thing. But like if nothing's wrong and they even find like a pointy object out of place, then like DCFS has to come in, and like then you're basically taking this boy away from his mother if like nothing actually is wrong. You basically can't unopen Pandora's box, and like it's a hard situation and stuff for her, because it's like she has like this gut feeling that something is wrong. And I mean, yeah.
You have your gut instincts for a reason, and they were screaming at her,
right?
Yeah. And they were obviously, we'll talk later, but it's Grace isn't usually wrong. Just so I'm glad that she took some time to think about the repercussions of what that call might mean,
Right, yeah, it's definitely good to like think it through. So yeah, then Marjan and Owen are at headquarters. They walk in, and apparently they're having a meeting or whatever with the people from that call in episode 2, Lila and Mitch. And so like it's funny because they walk in and they're both there, and it's just like, okay. And Marshall's like, I thought you guys were like divorced. And they're like, oh, we rekindled things. And I'm like, oh, of course you did, of course. And
because they figured they could hit a jackpot. Sorry.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I'm just like, okay, so you go back to a guy that literally did all these terrible things, almost tried to kill you, almost tried to kill like these officers, just all these things. And I'm like, so your self-worth goes out the window the way he treated you.
Right.
I'm sorry, why is he even like, isn't he being held criminally responsible for at least endangering the life of public servants?
No, he was given a fine.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Figures.
Yeah, that did come up in the scene. He just got a fine, and I'm like, are you? Because Owen had brought that up. Like, shouldn't he be in jail? And it's like,
I'll be honest. I did skip through a lot of the scene. I was like, awkwardness. I don't want to watch, and I skipped through a lot of it. So,
yeah, it was something. So like, yeah, so like it's just like, well, like about like her calling her crazy, like that's a problem. And like, yeah, like I get, like I'm on Marjan's side,
Me
but
too.
like I get she could have said things differently, but it was also in the moment, and yeah, like things could have said, but whatever. So Marjan apologizes, and like Lila's like, oh well, that was beautiful, and Mitch is just like, oh yeah, you should say it like that. And Marjan's just like, excuse me? And like he's like, yeah, just say it like that. And so apparently they want her to make an apology and post it on social media. And I'm just sitting here like, be fucking for real right now. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
Clout chasers.
clout, yeah, exactly what I was thinking. Like all they want is like their 5 seconds of fame. They
Yep.
just they know, and like they had done their research. They're like, oh, you got like, you know, you have a lot of followers, this and that. And so they're like, yeah. And like when you apologize publicly, yeah, we want you to endorse our GoFundMe. And so basically
Because we're
con
now
people out of
homeless.
money.
I'm like, oh my God. Like,
Because
seriously.
you're, yeah, and it's ridiculous because they're asking for like $750,000. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I was not happy.
When
And I was,
when they said how much they wanted through their GoFundMe, I was like, are you kidding me? Okay, it's not that expensive. You don't need, they're just trying to claim like a really nice house. Like, no,
right. Yep.
it's not. And so like, and like Marjan's like watching like after the fact, after they leave all this, like Marjan's watching their videos for their GoFundMe, and like I believe Paul, Nancy, and Mateo are there. And like she's watching it, and like she's watching what they're saying. It's so disgusting. And Marjan's
Yeah.
just like, are you kidding me? Like, and she's like, I don't I don't agree with this. Like, I don't know if I can do it. And Paul's like, well, you don't have to agree with it, but you just have to tag it, and then it's done. And Marjan's
Yeah.
like, well, that's just as bad. Like, if I tag
Right.
it, I'm endorsing it, I'm sending the wrong message to my followers, which yeah.
She's
and like
right.
yeah, and she mentions like how like a lot of her followers are young, and like what example does that send?
Yeah.
True, like yeah. And Marjan's
Very
like,
true.
she's like, well, like if she doesn't agree like with it, she could get fired or worse, but like is it really worth it? And I'm like,
Right.
no, it's not. Like that whole thing like made me mad. Obviously it was a department. Obviously they want to like
Right.
just shuffle things under the rug.
Yep.
They don't want, like, it's just like you shouldn't be asking her to publicly apologize and publicly endorse something that's disgusting, that's conning people out of money, because
It's
there were
extortion.
no
It's flat out what it is.
yeah, exactly. And like they don't they're just, there's no emotional damage here. There's no this. They're using that as a crutch.
What happened was the couple got together after the situation and realized, oh my God, she said this, and oh my God, that's Firefox.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we're like, we're in the money. That's why they decided to get back together.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly how it went. It's just like, I'm like, why is this happening? Honestly, I think a lot of people were saying that, like, why? I didn't know why this had to come up again. Because like when this happened, it was definitely not a big moment. Like, yeah, she called her crazy, and then that was that. Like, it never. If you had asked me if I thought this was ever gonna come to light, I would have said no.
Right.
Because it's crazy.
It is totally crazy.
It's wild that we're even here.
And just in general, like HR, like if somebody complains about somebody in like a field like this, those people don't face those people. Like that would never happen. So just the fact that Marjan had to face them, her accusers, in a freaking setting like that, I was so mad. I'm like, that would never happen.
Okay, yeah. And I know that won't happen because I've literally been a part of different HR investigations. And literally all that happens is, say an issue comes up, all that happens is that if it's really bad, they have to interview literally everyone there that like is part of it, even if you just heard things, and they just interview everyone separately, and they tell you not to talk about it. If like anybody tries to talk about it, they don't make you make public apologies, even if they knew you had followers. It's just it's wild. But then we get Grace and Judd and Charlie, which is super cute. And
I
like
love them.
I just love
They're
Judd
so
being
cute.
like, telling Grace, like, can you believe that Marjan got in trouble for calling a crazy lady crazy? It's funny because it's
Lady.
just like the things he says. I'm like, yep, that's Judd. And then
Mhm.
and then Grace is obviously like has her own shit going on, so she's not really like paying attention. She's like,
Mhm.
oh, are you like listening to anything she's saying? And she's like, not really. And so she starts telling him about like, the call with Linus and saying like, he was just calling about his math homework and this and that.
Right.
And Judd's like, what did I think about that? That was so funny. I
Yeah.
was dying. And then like and stuff. And so she was like saying how like, if she sends like a cop over there, that could be bad for him. And so like Judd suggests that they go over there tonight for like a visit or whatever. Because like
Mhm.
if they go over there like on their own terms, it's not as bad as if you were to do that. And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, sort of.
Technically ethical to take an
It's-
address from an official capacity like this.
No,
I
it's
mean,
not.
Maddie did it.
No. Yeah.
We know how that went.
I know everyone was bringing that up too, and that like we know how that went. I didn't think this like I wasn't really thinking about how ethical this is, and obviously it wasn't. But like I don't know, I
Like it was
like,
well intentioned.
yeah,
Right.
And honestly, it could like she owes a lot to them going there. Just like
Right.
realistically speaking, not technically an ethical decision,
yeah.
but
Realistically, don't ever
a
do
like
this.
values like more of a moral decision than an ethical decision.
Yeah.
And so yeah, never do this, but like
Don't try
it's
to sit
PG
home.
for work.
Exactly. Don't try to sit home. I love it.
But
That's
yeah,
generally
so
regarded as stalking. So no, but
yeah,
here
yeah.
it was a good
So
thing in this case that she did.
So yeah, so then they go or whatever, and so they're in the car or whatever, and Grace is like, okay, I'm gonna go up there, and like Judd's like, oh well, we'll come, and Grace is just like, yeah, why don't you just stay here because you're kind of scary, and he's like,
I don't need a big scary man.
I'm scary, and she's like, yeah, you're a little bit scary.
He is a little bit.
It's funny. No,
That's how
yeah.
you know him.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. And so like she goes to the door, the boy answers it and stuff, and it was just so cute because he was just like, Miss Grace, you're so pretty. I thought you'd be old.
Oh.
I love kids because like they just say whatever's on their mind.
Right.
Like there's no hiding anything, and I just love that. And then
Oh
so
yeah,
then-
it's literally one of the best things about childhood.
yeah.
Best
it
and worst
is.
things. Depends on where you are on the receiving end.
I know it's like
True.
it's one of the best things, but also the worst things. So you're like, oh yeah, okay. And then
Occasionally I wish I had some of that lack of filter back though, like and the excuse that goes along with it.
like I'm a kid, yeah, I could see because like
Right.
yeah, but yeah, then like so Linus is talking to her, and his mom is just like, who are you talking to? Like, where are you? And he's like, oh, I'm at the front door. And then of course we hear her collapse and like stuff. So like Grace has to go like help her and stuff, which this went like there was a lot happening in this episode, but it was just like so much happening, so many. I was like, holy. And so then Grace calls Tommy panicking because she like the mom had been stumbling and slurring her words, and like so this is like when like even a little before this, like after this is like the third time we've gotten like this similar thing. I was like, okay, what is she having, like a stroke? Because like I've not seen that firsthand, but I've dealt with that sort of. So like
Yeah, honestly,
I kind of
my
that
guess
was in the back
early
of my head.
my guess very early on in the episode was that she was having a stroke. Because I was like, okay, it's that, or like the way this tends to go, it's that, or she's having an alcohol or substance problem. And I was like,
Right.
I'm going to place it on it being a stroke. Only thing is that like strokes are more attributed to happening somewhat older, and so I was like, oh, I'm not sure.
I didn't like, see it.
However, if the right circumstances line up, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah,
Right,
like
exactly.
okay. Yeah, like I was like, okay, well, a lot of people are like, yeah, but she's too young. And I'm like, no, she's not, because there was literally a girl like multiple years ago. She was around the same age as me. She was literally 19 years old and she had a stroke.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
So, like,
it
Totally
happens
possible.
when there is a blocked artery or a ruptured artery.
Yep.
And that
Right.
can happen. And I believe she had a clot in her
Yeah,
brain.
she did.
Mhm.
But
A
yeah,
clot
so
in your brain can happen. You're at more risk when you're older, I believe. But it can happen at any point.
Right.
Great. Yeah. So, like Grace shines the light in her eyes or whatever. One's like contracting, normally one's not. So Tommy's like, she's having a stroke, because Grace calls Tommy panicking and stuff. She's
Mhm.
like, well, I don't know, like, because Tommy's like, oh, well, is she ODing or something? Grace is like, well, there's no alcohol or drugs anywhere around here, and her son says she's clean and whatever. And so like then Judd has to carry her to car and put her in the front. And so
Yeah.
like, because like it's like Tommy's like, well, why are you calling me? Like, didn't you call 911? She's like, I did, but they're not gonna like be here for like 12 minutes, and like she knows she doesn't have 12 minutes,
Yeah.
so they have to
Well,
drive her themselves.
Yeah, I mean, because there is that, and it's mentioned in the episode too. There's like a certain window between the time that it happens to getting help and help being successful.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Call it the golden
why it
hour.
is
Oh
exactly.
yeah, I know.
It's why something like CPR is so important, because you have to keep blood going to the brain.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you go brain dead and there's nothing else happening there. So you have that window of time with a stroke, you have that window of time where your body is somewhat still functioning for a little bit, but you have to go get the blood flow to your brain taken care of, or
Yeah.
there's not going to be much work with the brain. At least
Right.
not the same that you had before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's not like CPR worthy, like that's not CPR unless you stop breathing, but it's got like the same
Right.
general principle. The blood going to the brain is extremely important.
right,
is.
yeah. So yeah, like when I was a kid, my uncle had a stroke. So like
Mhm.
yeah, like I know a lot about this stuff.
Yeah.
I do too, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's so like it's especially when like it's like not like you can tell like things don't get better. It's so like it's hard to watch somebody go through that.
Yeah.
And just because like he like couldn't talk or like do like any of that, like he would talk but he wouldn't make any sense, and like it was so hard like watching him. Like he knew exactly what he wanted to say in his brain, but he couldn't
Right.
actually say it
Yeah.
and stuff. It was like frustrating, not only for him, for just for other people. It was like, god damn.
Right.
But yeah,
It's definitely humbling for sure. You know, my mom had a stroke in front of me. So,
Mhm.
you know, unfortunately, I had to learn firsthand the hard way. That was pretty scary. And it's very humbling, you know, just what happens because of it. And yeah, so I'm glad Grace was there. And yeah, there's the golden hour. And you know, that's the sooner they could get her into the hospital, the better. So I did like that scene. I liked seeing Grace. I mean, go Grace for like being willing to do it, you know, check this gal out and like try to help her. Because normally Grace is on the phone.
I know, and it
She's
was
not.
hard. Yeah, which she explained like why it was hard for her, which
Yeah.
we'll get to. But so then they're in the hospital waiting room, and like it was so sweet. Judd's like talking to this kid, and he's like asking him like if he likes candy, like do you like candy bars, and asking like what kind he likes, and the kid's like, well, I like all of them except for the ones with coconut.
Same kiddo, same.
Yeah. So like they go and get candy, and so Grace and Tommy are talking, and Grace is like, thank God I had you tonight, because like she didn't feel like in control, since usually she's like the one with the headset on. She's the one talking. She's not like, she doesn't have to do any of this. And it's like it's overwhelming, and like that's understandable.
Right.
And stuff. And then the doctor comes out and says how like they they were able to like take care of the claw and repair it and all this stuff, and like she's gonna be okay and stuff, like she'll be just fine. And like all the people pointed out that after this had aired, like, you know, that was like the same doctor as like TK's doctor from last season when he had the hypothermia when he was in a coma. And I was like, oh, interesting.
Oh yeah, it was the same doctor.
Yeah, a lot of people pointed
I
that
didn't
out.
notice that.
Yeah, it was. I didn't notice it right away. Then,
I
like,
recognized her, but I've watched 3 or 4 a few times.
I've watched all those a lot, but like I haven't watched them in a while, so I didn't even think about it. And honestly, I'm not thinking about who she is,
right,
and stuff. But yeah. So then we get O'Brien's nephew, Andy, once again touring an apartment, and this gave me so many flashbacks to other things, like parallels, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah.
But so he's touring this apartment, the realtor, whatever, and it's just so creepy. Like he's very good at being creepy. I'll give this actor the applause there, because oh my god. So the realtor apparently gets a call, whatever, after he's like telling him about whatever. And this is when the dude goes and unlocks the window, and I'm like, what are you gonna do, break in? But then I'm like, Katie, think about it. And it's like, yeah, think about it. So then the next scene, the whole apartment building goes up in flames. Oh, I'm so shocked. And like and stuff. So the 126 get there, and like Judd's like, okay, we need to be quick on our toes because this thing's about to flash over. And stuff. So like Paul and Marjan go in, and it's like a woman and a man are in there. The guy is so scared, and like they like Paul's like, oh well, come with me to the woman and like we'll get you out. And then the guy is so scared, he's like clinging on, and like Owen's like, what's the holdup? And Marjan she's about to go off and be like, this guy is crazy, but then she like she before she even got those words out, she corrected herself. She's like, wait.
Right.
And stuff, and she's just like, oh well, he's scared. But then Paul comes back and he's like, okay, no, we're going. And he kind of nudges Guy, but he falls over. And I love like this
I thought
dynamic.
He punched him.
I think he went to grab him and the guy fell over. Like he's like to nudge him up and stuff. I don't think he actually punched him.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, he like tried to pull him up because he wasn't like going and stuff, but the dude just fell over and stuff. But then Paul shows up at headquarters to defend Marjan, and the like HR lady is like there. And so like they're talking, and before there was like this moment where she's like, oh, don't I know you? And Paul's like, I don't think so. And so, but Paul, like, they were talking, and Paul's like, why aren't you doing anything? And she said how, like, she sent this email or whatever to basically say, like, Marjan should be cleared or whatever to, like, shut it down. But, like, they had called her, like, right after she sent the email and, like said, like, you know, no, that's not happening. Like, we're not backing down or whatever.
Yeah.
And
basically, they want to throw the book at Marjan and make her an example.
Which, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many other things that could have been done, but then it comes back to the fact, so like they're trying to figure out, or at least this lady is trying to figure out how she knows Paul, and she keeps asking like him like different things, and like then it's like, oh, where'd you go to elementary school? And like they figure out they went to the same school, and she was like apparently a girl that he knew then before she moved to Texas or whatever. And like I'm like, okay, why are we introducing this? Because like, okay, this is such a ploy to be like, oh, here is this woman and Paul and her are going to date because I'm not stupid and I know what they're doing. I'm onto your games.
It's like, I see what you're doing. Yeah,
I see what you're doing and I don't like it. It's like it's like the fans just being like, for like basically 3 seasons, like, give Paul a girlfriend, and then we get a love interest or what we know is going to be one. We're like, yeah, that's not what we meant.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't actually have an issue with it personally. I personally do not have enough information to have an issue about it. She is a woman doing her job. Who even tried to stick up for Marjan.
I'll give her that.
I don't have anything against her. Especially for someone who knew Paul before he transitioned.
Yeah.
She was excellent as far as that went as well. I'm okay with it right now, unless I am given reason to not be okay with it at a later point.
Yeah, that's true.
Like this could be what I asked for. I don't know. We're gonna have to
I
see.
don't know. As of right now, I'm like, I really hope this isn't where we're going because it's a conflict of interest. I don't care if there's other HR people.
There is that.
There's a huge conflict of interest, and also like she just, I don't know, in this whole episode, just she had different looks on her face. She said different things that just came off like just kind of bitchy, and I'm like, I don't like this. Like it just didn't give a good comforting feeling for me. Then we get to the part that I'm dreading. But so Martian shows Owen this video that her apology, and it wasn't really an apology. It was like, well, I should have called you a money hungry, and stuff, which, okay. And then she's like, well, I'm resigning effective immediately. And I'm like, what the hell? And so Owen's like, you can't post that. And Martian's like, well, I already did. And I feel like I know like this whole episode was about like this, and this was in the promo, but when things are like this are in the promo, I'm like, oh, it's just a joke. And then here we are, and it's like actually like legitimate. And I'm like, well, this came out of nowhere. What the hell?
Yeah, I was not happy about that. But I get why Marjan's doing it, because she doesn't feel, and I don't blame her. Like I would, if I had that many followers, I sure as hell wouldn't apologize for something and ask them to support X, Y, and Z. Like that's ridiculous. And so I can understand why she's doing it. It's maybe not the wisest idea, and she's definitely shooting herself in the foot to ever come back to work there.
Yeah, it's
But
definitely interesting.
at least she's not suing the department. Is that too soon?
At least she's not going full block.
Right.
I don't actually compare these storylines, if I'm being honest, because they're different.
Oh yeah,
it's not.
They are.
So it's not inter-department. It's someone from an outside source threatening a lawsuit. So I actually do not compare them at all, because there's not really anything to compare.
Right.
She stuck up for what she believed in and what she wanted to promote. I think she was admirable in doing so. Yes, it may cause complications in her coming back if she decides to.
Well, the good thing though is that Owen did say your job's safe as long as I'm here. So granted, that comes in a few minutes,
who knows what time will do. And honestly, whatever their names are, Gerald's or whatever, they've now been shamed across social media, so they ain't got anything to stand upon. So if they know what's good for them, they would just duck out of the limelight.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, because they're called out. It's like now everyone knows like what you were after and stuff.
Right.
And like
now they couldn't even really take her for liable or anything because she told the truth. See, I'm taking an intro to mass media class, so we're going into a lot of news ethics and defamation, libel, all that.
Right.
If they really want to try and get something, they could try going for libel, but they would not win it.
No, and like honestly, all the things she did, she could easily sue them and win.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So like, there's always that.
Like they'd be better off just pretending they do not exist anymore, separating for good, because they certainly don't feed off of anything good with each other. And the whole world would be better if they all just forgot they exist.
Yeah, really.
So
yeah, I wanted to pretend they didn't exist. That's for sure.
Oh, I wasn't happy to forget they exist until I rewatch it at some point.
Right. In a few years, we'll do a marathon again and be like, oh man, I knew I forgot about something.
That's what the fast forward button's for.
Right? That I employ that all. I employ while watching the episode the first time through.
I know. I can't do that. I don't have that control.
Yes, you write the notes. But because you write the notes, you make it so I can
not even that.
So thank you.
I watch it live, and I never do that. I never do that with anything. I have to watch at least one episode, like, without skipping once. When I rewatch things, I'm like, okay, I can skip this if I feel the need.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then we get the last scene of the episode where Owen rehomps his bike to Marjan. I wasn't seeing this coming. People were like, well, it was in the promo. And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to the promo enough to realize that it was Marjan and not Owen. Sorry, guys.
Right.
So yeah. And so she's just like, well, there's no one going back now. Like, I already bought the helmet and this really cool jacket.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
When she slays.
She
Yes, she
does all the
does.
time. So then Owen's just like, well, treat her well because she's very important to me. And Marjan's like, I will. And Owen's like, not you. I'm talking to the bike. And I was like,
Oh.
oh.
Yeah.
I
that was
thought
cute.
Owen did really good in this episode, just because we're talking about it, because he still supported her. He brought up that, oh, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot here kind of deal, but he also told her how proud he was of her for
Yeah.
standing up like that.
I know he was mad. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
mad, but I'm proud of you.
I mean, that's a fair range of emotions.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but bro, this goodbye scene.
I know. Okay,
Aw.
so
I know.
and like Owen did mention like how like as long as I'm here, you're just about to save. And then like goodbyes come, and my allergies were acting up. I was like, oh no.
Mhm.
So like she's saying goodbye to everyone, and this is when my brain was going, what the hell is happening? And I was like kind of spiraling. I'm like, wait, is like Marjan actually leaving? I was
Yeah.
like, is Natasha leaving? And I was spiraling for like the last minutes of the episode. So like Tommy's like saying goodbye, and it's like, oh, it's not goodbye. And Judd's like, then she says bye to Judd, and just like, all who wander are not lost, and how
I love
like
that.
him and Grace
Awkward.
will be praying for her, and she's like, I'll be praying for you guys too. And then Marjan's like to TK, like, I promise no matter what happens, I'll be back for the wedding. And TK's like, you better, because Carlos will hunt you down. And I'm like, wait, can I
Yes.
picture that happening?
Oh my god.
That's it.
And then Mateo says like how he watches a chicken every day, and it's like, I want to know where you're going, where you're staying. And Nancy's like, can you just stop being a dad? And I was like, I loved that. That was so funny. And then Nancy's just like, if you get drowsy, pull off the side of the road. It's like, of
Right.
course. Okay. And then when Paul said goodbye, he had tears in his eyes, and I'm like,
Aw.
now I'm crying.
Mm.
And
His
Paul,
best friend's leaving.
and then they're like saying goodbye to each other, and they're like, oh, I love you. It's like, I love you too, buddy. And I'm like, oh.
Mhm.
And then like, are we pretending like this is all okay? And then like she rides off, and like and then like, I love Tiki saying like, just what I thought, she couldn't get any more badass. And Owen's just like, well, that's Marjan for you. And he's like, well, maybe I should get another bike. And I'm like, are you
Oh god,
sure?
no. No, Owen.
Please
Please do
no.
not.
Please move on to like something else.
I thought it
Please.
was really funny. Actually, I'm so sad he didn't keep the bike, to be honest. Like, he got to be in one of his younger phases with it. I'm
Yeah.
less scared what he'll do next.
I know. I mean, I feel like it's a good thing because the bike attracted all this bad energy.
Yeah, to be fair,
yeah.
he did kind of unintentionally get involved with a terrorist group. So,
Owen just
that's a whole
attracts the
other
wrong
thing.
crowd. I feel like a lot of the time, like not on purpose and nothing against him. He tends to attract the wrong people. Like,
He
it
has
just
a bad
happens.
habit.
Yeah, I don't know why.
It
It just
gets involved.
Yeah. I've yet to figure it out myself. I'm like, dude, Owen, like, what's going on here?
yeah. And I know
Yeah.
a lot of people are upset that Carlos wasn't in this episode.
Yeah.
You know what?
And,
I
like-
feel like, of course, I miss my boy, but I also feel like if Carlos had been, it would have brought in the other storyline, and I actually feel like it would have distracted way too much. We
Yeah,
had
like,
two
I was
storylines going through this episode.
Yeah, I was okay with it. Like, him not being in this episode, like, yeah, it kind of sucks because like it would have been nice to have follow-up of like recovery, and like people were like, well,
Right.
I wanted to, like, it just happened last episode and I wanted to like know like how is he recovering? Like TK also had to resuscitate him in that episode, so like
Mhm.
emotionally, how's he doing? But I'm also like, I don't know, this episode had like such strong storylines like with Marjan and Grace, so I was okay with him not being here. It would have been nice to have at least had a mention, like either if it was a phone call between TK and Carlos, even if we didn't hear the other end, it would have been nice. But also, it's like,
Right.
I don't know how that would have fit. And I think we just have to assume that like things are okay. And maybe next episode, I don't want to say we're not going. I don't know. For sure, we're getting them in episode 8, which
Mm-hmm.
I
excited
don't
for
think they're
that.
gonna leave it that long though. So I'm feeling
don't
like
know.
we'll probably see more next episode.
I'm 50-50 on it because I'm like, are they gonna focus on like the whole like terrorists, whatever you want to call it, thing
I want
in
to know
next
how long
episode?
that's gonna be lurking in the background because I feel like they could draw this out a little bit longer.
I think it's gonna be over by episode 7 max.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Because
I don't know.
just because I know there's other stuff going on in like 8, and I feel like it's got to be over by then because I feel like we're getting towards the end part of it, and I'm like, they can drag it out from 6 to 7, but they're not going to be able to drag it out any longer than that because
Yeah.
we've already gotten like basically like not. We basically have gotten like 5 episodes of it.
Yeah, to be fair, the first 4 were misdirected from the actual focus of it, but yeah, it has already been going on for a few episodes. And we see stuff happening. We saw him at the apartment fire. He
Yeah.
was writing down how many units were there, he was taking notes, and I have
I
my
know.
suspicions on what's happening. Everyone, I could even say those suspicions right now.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were like connecting it to like the storyline in 911. People are like, why are we getting this again? And I'm like, it's not really the same thing. Like in 911, it was basically directed at Bobby and
Yeah,
stuff, and it's not really the same thing. Like I don't even know. We don't even know like
Yeah.
who it's really directed at or why or anything. We just know that Owen got involved in this shit, and maybe he's coming after Owen now because he got involved, but it's like also not his fault.
so I have a hunch, and I don't know
Oh.
how correct I am on it.
I'm excited to
But-
hear this.
Yes, I want to hear this.
One thing that caught my eye was he was jotting down how many units were at the scene.
Interesting.
And I know they focused on Owen on that, but I think that may have been a slight diversion or a throwback. We remember when we saw the end of, I believe it was 4, we saw the newspaper clippings about 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
My hunch is that he's getting all those details with different scales of events, see what brings out how many firefighters, how many officers. I think he's going to stage something, and I think he's going to launch a mass attack against
Right.
the first responders.
Yeah, I think they've kind of already alluded to the fact that we're going to have some sort of like mass casualty event.
Yeah, they
And I
kind of
think
alluded
it's-
to that in the promo.
I think it is the fire department, or first responders as a whole. Maybe it's
Yeah.
even motivated a little bit towards O'Brien because uncle,
Right.
cop, all that kind of thing.
Right.
But
Right.
it's the fact that he was keeping track of how many units there were for me
Yeah.
and staged something simply. There's no other plausible reason to be seen right now that he started that
Right.
fire. So that's my
Okay.
hunch.
It's a good thought.
And we'll see what happens. I'm very
Mm.
intrigued by this storyline.
Yeah.
I do
like-
really want someone to find the school bus at some point in time and have some questions raised. And
Yeah.
the guy who got shot.
For
I
sure.
know. I'm assuming that's gonna come. I literally hope so. It's gonna come up at least the next episode. I don't know. And stuff.
They
but
might
yeah.
they might never, if we're being honest, they might never find that. Or they might mention it like distantly as so we put these things together like maybe as an after the event or during the event kind of deal. But
Yeah, it's possible.
I feel like somebody's
guy
gotta
was just
come
simply
across that.
yeah, like the guy, it didn't look like a populated area, but it was close enough to somewhere that the guy was hiking.
Yeah.
Logistically speaking, someone else is going to come across it at some point in time.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Who
And we don't know
knows?
how smart this guy is. Like, we don't know if he's smart enough to like hide the body, take the dude's phone, because like, somebody's gonna go looking for this guy. They're not gonna be like, oh,
Yeah.
he never came home.
Mhm.
yeah. I will say he might not have covered it up simply because what would trace it back to him? Like, that would be an investigation, but at the moment,
Yeah.
he himself is not facing any particular chase or bearing down. So if he was smart enough to not want to risk any sort of investigation, he would cover things up. But even just burying the guy, someone's still gonna come across the school bus with all the mannequins. And I know if I stumbled across that, I'd be like, I'm getting out of here because it looks like a horror story setup. But
Right. That was a creepy little scene.
mannequins are cool, but they're creepy as like
Oh.
AF.
They used to creep me out so bad, and like it was funny because like I'd see them at malls when I was growing up, and like when I was a teenager, and I didn't mind the ones that had faces, but I would be like, oh my god, that one doesn't have a face. That's so creepy.
Yeah, the ones without faces were the creepiest.
I know, or like the ones that are headless. I'm like, oh,
Missing some sort of limb or headless. It's like, could you just not make it complete? What is selling this product?
right? Yeah. So all in all, I don't know. There was so much action and just so much happening this episode. I liked it. Obviously, there was those few details where I was just like, why is this happening? Like, what is the reason for any of this? But I'm also like, and like, I know Marjan will be back. Like, I'm not like, okay, when I watched this, I was like, oh my god, is she leaving? But like, I know she'll be back, and I know like I don't always read the interviews, but I read the interview after this one, and Natasha said that there's gonna be an episode where basically it's just gonna be her, like not the core cast, but she comes across other people on her travels, and I'm so excited for that. Like possibly it may be a Marjan-ish Begins episode, which had been teased about and stuff, and I'm excited. Like she won't be the next couple episodes, which a lot of people are like, oh my god, Marjan can point out this guy, and I'm like, how? She's not even gonna be here. I know she's gonna be FaceTiming them in the next episode, I heard, but like it's like she's not gonna be there. She's not gonna be a part of any of this. So like, no, that's not happening. But
it would be interesting if she was, but she's like, there's no real way. But this is also a very interesting way for the show. Get anybody. Well, they got her out of the way so that if the guy comes around again, of course, if Owen's not there, it all depends on whether Owen's there or not.
I hope
which might be why they are. Yeah, right. Big scary boy. Mountain of a man. The thing that I think the only reason they're focusing in on Owen, just personally, is because he is the only one who could recognize him right now as who he is. Marjan would simply just like if he came across somewhere else weird, she's smart enough to have alarm bells ringing in her head. But now she's off riding into the sunset for a while.
I know. Of course. Of course.
I think I struggled a little bit with this, just with the Owen stuff, because I'm like, where were you with your son last week? But then, but it's also not stuff that was going on in the firehouse either. But I'm glad to see Owens at least stepping up a little, and he's taking the heat for two, because he didn't want to have Marjan going down to, alone. And it was a good episode, but I don't know. She's such a part of the 126. It's going to be weird to not have her there. And I'm just really curious how it's going to work, because with what she said on her video, it's going to make her really challenging for her to try and get her job back. Owen's going to be we'll give it back to her, but will the department be willing to,
See, what would save her here? And this is the thing about societal pressure. This is why people that, let's take cops that have done bad stuff, that's why some of them have been fired when they wouldn't originally be, because the public slammed it so much that the department was either going to risk completely losing face, or they had to fire those cops.
Yeah.
I feel like that could have even applied here.
Yeah.
Because she went public. They wanted to make a public spectacle of something. She made a public spectacle. So now they're going to be having to scramble a little bit on saving face there.
Right.
And it might just come in the form of ignoring what Marjan said and not purchasing her coming back. That's my thought, but
it's possible for sure.
Yeah.
Because because they don't want to look bad, and that made them look bad. So it's possible.
Right.
Especially if people start asking
yeah.
the right questions.
Right. Yeah.
But I also look at it too as this is the first time she's been free in her life.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
she's making her own choices.
Because she's been, was arranged to be married to someone who ended up not happening. And then she'd been a firefighter, and she fought so hard to be a firefighter. And then when she moved to Austin to be, stand up and be supported in a community that's not as supportive, just in general, Austin being a different city than Miami. So this is like the first time she's on her own and she can do what she wants. She has no attachment to anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which I know Natasha mentioned on like interviews that's like basically Marjan soul searching. This is like the first time like she, she's always like had like her career, and she's always like she's worked hard, and now it's time for her to like soul search, and this will definitely be good for her. And I'm like, yeah, it's definitely gonna be weird. Like I'm like, it's either not gonna be weird at all that she's gone. Like the only thing we have to compare it is like when like Maddie was gone, like when Chimney and Maddie are gone and now one last season.
Yeah.
And that was kind of weird. So it's either gonna be like that, or it's gonna be like, oh, no big deal. I don't think it's gonna be really that weird, just because she is gonna be in like random episodes here and there. And she's gonna have like her own episode, so I guess we'll see how it goes.
Something's gonna bring her back to Texas, whether it's just a natural progression.
I'm curious what that thing is.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be a natural progression. I think something's gonna spur her back. Maybe something happens and she decides to come back to help people, or maybe she gets wind of something that's going to happen.
Yeah.
She could start putting shit together. She's a smart cookie.
Oh yeah,
she's smart.
Or maybe when she does come back for Carlos and TK's wedding, something piques her interest to stay.
Right.
I swear to God, if anything, I don't think it will, but if anything happens around the wedding, like if this event affects that at all, I'm throwing hands. I'm going to Fox. Let's go.
I know, like let us just.
We're gonna have a thing.
Okay.
Can we just have it?
Can we?
We've been waiting. I need it.
Can we not have anyone get hurt, heading to the hospital, or go missing?
Please, agreed.
Right. Yeah.
No dramatics. Carlos wedding drama free, please. Like the actual event itself, drama free. We can work with the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about fan thoughts.
Yeah, before we spiral more.
Because like we could talk about this forever.
Yeah. Good call. Good call, Katie.
Yeah. First one. Honestly, I didn't like it because of what happened. Understandable. I miss Carlos. I mean, same. I always miss Carlos. Come on now. We got our first character leaving. I know it's not permanent, but it's still sad. Okay, yeah, literally. Let's see what else. Last one. Loved the Marjan part, but had expected at least some mention of Carlos. That's fair. I feel like I don't know what I was really expecting. Like, I kind of figured that they might step away for a minute, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I do find it interesting that we have held out 4 seasons without a character really leaving the show, like a main character.
Minus Tim,
and we
he's
side character.
Yeah,
he was
side characters.
Yeah,
more side character.
But we don't really know.
R.I.P. Tim, we miss you, but also, he's kind of. Yeah,
I know. I mean,
and we lost
sort
Charles.
of Charles. Michelle left, but like that was like I don't know, different.
Also, side characters and characters we didn't really have time to get attached to. That's the thing with Tim too.
See, I liked Tim. I didn't like other characters.
Tim.
Yeah.
I mean, I like him because he came from Maryland, and he was funny.
That's right.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Listen, when I heard that, I was like, okay, my state only gets known for having crabs in Old Bay. Thank you.
Like, I need something.
Thank you
else
for
to root
including that he's just from the random ass border state out here where we're not quite southern and not quite northern. That's we can't figure out what we are. And neither can our weather. I didn't need a coat today, and we're still in February. This is not right. Okay. Before we spile on that.
Right.
Yeah, spiraling. I'm just gonna go further south. Keep warm.
Okay, so let's talk about the promo now. So we got this. It was very quick, not a lot happened. And honestly, I just glanced over most of it because I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
So there was some
Okay.
explosion, and like everyone's yelling for Owen, or at least Judd, I think was. And like, so Owen carries this woman out, and so like, and stuff. And I just thought it was funny because like people are like, oh my God, is Owen dead? And I'm like, oh my God. We go through this every season. Which I know half of you don't care, but so then we see O'Brien's nephew with explosives. Then we see the 126 go to this bomb threat call, and then we see school buses. So I'm like, oh damn it, is this like near a school or what's the deal?
Yeah.
And then when 126 stat bases like to call it, I think this is probably when Owen tells them that he's working with the FBI or like
Mhm.
about the bomb threats or about this or that or
My other thought
about
was possibly,
attacks.
yeah, or is it possibly that he's telling him and like prepping him for going to the school?
I feel like that's probably it. And so that's pretty much all that happened. And yeah, this is definitely going to be the big episode. Honestly, I feel like this might be the conclusion because I was also like, I just read this episode 7 synopsis and it has nothing to do with any of this. So I'm thinking this is just the last bit, which I'm okay with. I'm kind of ready for all this to just be done because I'm like, it's time. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
it didn't
yeah,
much. Yeah, it didn't give us a lot. So
I'm okay
Okay.
with that because it's like I don't want everything. I want to be at least somewhat surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
okay with slightly bigger promos.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining us and listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Anchor. We're also on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, anywhere you can get your podcasts. On iTunes and Spotify. Please rate us and leave us a review. It would mean a lot to us. You guys can follow the podcast on our socials at 91LS Roundup on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also join our Discord server. We love talking to you guys over there. The link is in the description of this podcast and our Instagram bio. You guys can follow me, Katie, at Tarlos on Instagram and TikTok.
You guys can follow me, Grace, at RonanRathla911 on Instagram and at CheapGirl31 on Twitter.
You can follow me, EJ, at EJ8302 on Instagram and Twitter. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.